Every morning you wake up with two choices. You can let stress, fear, distractions, and bad habits control your day, or you can take control of your mind before the world reaches you. Most people spend years repeating the same routines while wondering why nothing changes. This audiobook will show you how 5 simple lines spoken every morning can slowly rebuild your confidence, discipline, focus, and self-respect. These words are not empty motivation. They are daily reminders that shape your actions, decisions, and future. You will learn how to stop making excuses, protect your attention, strengthen your habits, and train your mind to stay calm during difficult moments. If you feel tired of wasting time doubting yourself or starting over again and again, then stay with this message until the end, because one strong morning routine can completely change the direction of your life. Chapter 1. Declare your worth before the world shapes your mindset. Every morning your mind wakes up empty for a few brief moments. Before the noise arrives, before the notifications, before the opinions, before the pressure of life enters your thoughts, there is a small window where your identity is still soft and unshaped for the day. Most people waste that moment. They wake up and immediately hand their attention to the world. They check their phone. They compare themselves to strangers online. They replay stress from yesterday. They start thinking about bills, responsibilities, disappointments, and fear. Before they even stand up, their mind has already been conquered. That is why so many people spend their lives reacting instead of leading. They allow the world to define their value. They wait for approval from other people before they feel confident. They depend on compliments to feel attractive. They depend on results to feel successful. They depend on attention to feel important. This creates a weak foundation because the world changes every day. People change their opinions. Circumstances become difficult. Failure appears without warning. Rejection arrives unexpectedly. If your worth depends on external things, then your peace disappears the moment life becomes uncomfortable. A strong life begins when you stop asking the world who you are. The first conversation every morning must happen between you and yourself. Before the world speaks to you, your own voice must speak first. That voice must remind you of your standards, your values, your direction, and your strength. This is not empty motivation. This is mental conditioning. This is training your identity before pressure begins. Most people underestimate how much their internal language controls their future. The words repeated inside the mind slowly become beliefs. Beliefs shape decisions. Decisions shape habits. Habits shape destiny. A person who constantly says they are weak, distracted, unlucky, or incapable will eventually act in alignment with those words. A person who trains themselves daily to think with strength, discipline, patience, and purpose begins acting differently without even realizing it. The mind is always listening. A person who wakes up every day saying life is unfair begins searching for proof of unfairness. A person who wakes up every day saying they are capable begins searching for opportunities. Attention follows belief. Energy follows attention. Action follows energy. This is why your morning words matter more than most people understand. The world already has enough voices trying to shape your identity. Advertisements try to convince you that you are incomplete without buying something. Social media tries to convince you that your life is behind everyone else. Negative people try to transfer their fear into your mind. Past failures try to convince you that growth is impossible. If you do not consciously build your mindset, then the environment will build it for you. And the environment rarely builds strength. Most environments produce insecurity, distraction, weakness, emotional reactions, and comparison. A disciplined mind must be created intentionally. Nobody drifts into greatness accidentally. Nobody wakes up one day with confidence without first training their thoughts repeatedly. This is why the 5 lines you speak every morning are not simple phrases. They are instructions. They are reminders. They are daily commands shaping your identity. They are armor before battle. The first line must remind you of your value. Not because you are perfect, not because life is easy, not because everyone accepts you. Your value exists because you are capable of growth, discipline, wisdom, service, and self-respect. Human worth is not measured only by money, appearance, status, or attention. Some of the most respected people in history faced rejection, humiliation, poverty, and hardship before their value was recognized. A person with self-respect continues improving even when nobody applauds. That is true worth. Many people destroy themselves trying to gain approval from people who are also insecure. They change their personality to fit in. They silence their opinions to avoid criticism. They chase validation until they no longer recognize themselves. This creates emotional exhaustion because pretending requires constant energy. Real confidence feels calm because it does not depend on performance. When you wake up each morning, you resolve that your responsibility is not to impress everyone. Your responsibility is to live honestly with discipline and integrity. The world may misunderstand you. Some people may dislike you. Some people may underestimate you. None of that changes your responsibility to become stronger, wiser, and more disciplined. A tree does not stop growing because someone refuses to admire it. Many people delay self-belief until after success arrives. They think confidence comes after achievement. But the truth is, achievement often comes after confidence. A person who believes they are capable begins taking action earlier. They recover from failure faster. They persist longer. They improve consistently because they expect growth from themselves. The morning is where this expectation is built. The moment you wake up, your mind is impressionable. This is why negative mornings are dangerous. A stressful beginning often creates a stressful day. If the first thing you consume every morning is fear, outrage, comparison, or distraction, then your mind enters survival mode immediately. Protect your mornings carefully. Do not allow random information to enter your mind before your own values do. There is power in sitting quietly for a few moments after waking up, breathing slowly, looking at your own life honestly, reminding yourself who you are becoming. The strongest people are not always the loudest. Often they are simply the most intentional. They think before reacting. They choose their focus carefully. They do not allow temporary emotions to control permanent decisions. Your morning declarations create direction. Without direction, the mind becomes weak and reactive. A reactive mind wastes energy on things outside its control. Stoic wisdom teaches that peace comes from mastering your response rather than controlling every circumstance. You cannot control how people behave. You cannot control sudden problems. You cannot control every outcome. But you can control the meaning you assign to your life each morning. That control changes everything. Imagine two people facing the exact same difficult day. One wakes up already defeated, saying nothing ever works out. The other wakes up saying, challenges are part of growth and discipline will carry them through discomfort. The circumstances may be identical, but the internal experience becomes completely different. One person collapses mentally before the battle begins. The other enters the day prepared. This preparation is not accidental. Mental strength is built through repetition. Nobody becomes resilient from hearing one inspiring sentence. Resilience is developed through daily reminders practiced consistently over time. Just as the body changes through repeated physical training, the mind changes through repeated mental training. Your thoughts are exercises. Every repeated thought strengthens something inside you. Repeated fear strengthens anxiety. Repeated gratitude strengthens peace. Repeated discipline strengthens self-control. Repeated excuses strengthen weakness. This is why your morning voice matters so much. Many people spend years waiting for someone else to encourage them while ignoring the power of encouraging themselves. Waiting for external motivation creates dependence. Self-leadership creates freedom. The strongest form of motivation is internal, because it remains available even during loneliness, rejection, or failure. There will be mornings where life feels heavy. Some days exhaustion will sit in your chest before you even leave the bed. Some mornings disappointment from the past will return to your thoughts. Some mornings fear about the future will whisper inside your mind. In those moments your declarations matter even more, especially when you do not feel like saying them. Discipline is most valuable when emotions are unstable. Anybody can speak confidently when life is easy. Real growth appears when you continue choosing strength during uncertainty. A disciplined person does not wait for perfect emotions before acting wisely. They act based on values, not feelings. This principle changes lives. Many people are controlled entirely by emotional weather. If they feel motivated, they work. If they feel discouraged, they quit. If they feel confident, they try. If they feel insecure, they hide. This creates inconsistency which destroys progress. Your declarations every morning create stability. They remind you that your standards remain even when your emotions fluctuate. One powerful morning line could be reminding yourself that you are responsible for your own energy. This removes blame from your life. Blame feels comfortable temporarily because it protects the ego from discomfort. But blame also removes power. The moment you believe your entire emotional state depends on other people, you become powerless. Personal responsibility creates strength. This does not mean life is always fair. It means you refuse to surrender your future to excuses. Strong people accept reality honestly without becoming victims of it. Ask what can still be improved. They focus on action instead of endless complaining. Complaining changes nothing. Focused action changes lives. Your morning should train action-oriented thinking. Speak words that remind you to move forward despite discomfort. Remind yourself that growth often feels uncomfortable because growth requires change. Weak habits resist discipline. Old identities resist improvement. Fear resists risk. But staying the same creates a different kind of pain. The pain of regret, the pain of wasted potential, the pain of realizing years passed without intentional growth. That pain is far heavier. The purpose of your morning declarations is not to create fantasy. It is to create clarity. Clarity about who you are becoming. Clarity about what truly matters. Clarity about how you want to respond to life. Most distractions lose power when your direction becomes clear. A person with no purpose becomes vulnerable to every distraction. Hours disappear scrolling through meaningless content. Energy disappears arguing with negative people. Attention disappears chasing approval. But a person who remembers their standards every morning becomes harder to manipulate. They become focused. Focus is a superpower in modern life because distraction is everywhere. Companies compete for your attention constantly. Social media platforms are designed to keep your mind overstimulated. Endless entertainment keeps people passive while their goals slowly die in silence. Protecting your mind is now a daily responsibility. The quality of your life depends heavily on the quality of your focus. What you repeatedly think about eventually shapes your emotions, behavior, and identity. This is why intentional mornings matter so deeply. They establish your mental direction before distractions begin pulling at your attention. Even 10 quiet minutes every morning can begin transforming your entire mindset over time. Sit up slowly, breathe deeply, speak your declarations clearly, do not rush through them mechanically. Feel the meaning behind the words. Remind yourself that your life still has potential regardless of your past mistakes. Remind yourself that discipline matters more than temporary emotion. Remind yourself that you are capable of growth if you continue acting consistently. Then carry those thoughts into action. Words alone do not change lives. Repeated words combined with disciplined action create transformation. A person who declares confidence but avoids responsibility remains trapped. A person who declares strength while practicing daily discipline begins changing from the inside out. Your actions must confirm your declarations. If you declare that your health matters, then treat your body with respect. If you declare that your future matters, then protect your time carefully. If you declare that your peace matters, then stop feeding your mind constant negativity. Self-respect is visible through behavior. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing transformation requires massive sudden change. In reality, lasting growth begins quietly. Small daily decisions repeated consistently create powerful results over time. 5 intentional minutes every morning may seem insignificant at first, but months of intentional mental conditioning slowly reshape identity. Identity shapes destiny. The person who repeatedly reminds themselves they are disciplined eventually becomes more disciplined. The person who repeatedly reminds themselves they are capable begins attempting bigger goals. The person who repeatedly trains gratitude notices blessings instead of constantly focusing on lack. Your inner voice becomes your future. That voice must be guarded carefully because the human mind absorbs repetition deeply. Many people unknowingly repeat destructive phrases daily. They call themselves lazy, stupid, unattractive, broken, unlucky, or hopeless. Even if spoken casually, these words slowly become internal truth. Never speak about yourself carelessly. The way you speak internally matters. Replace self-insult with accountability. Replace hopelessness with direction. Replace fear with preparation. Replace comparison with personal improvement. This does not mean pretending problems do not exist. Stoicism teaches acceptance of reality without emotional collapse. Face your flaws honestly, but do not worship them. Recognize weaknesses while still believing improvement is possible. Growth requires honesty and hope together. A person who ignores flaws cannot improve. A person who loses hope stops trying. Balance is necessary. See yourself clearly while continuing to move forward with discipline. There will always be people who doubt your potential. Some will mock your growth. Some will only remember older versions of you. Do not build your identity around their perception. People often struggle to accept change because your growth reminds them of their own excuses. Stay focused anyway. Your responsibility is not convincing everyone. Your responsibility is becoming stronger than yesterday. Quiet improvement eventually speaks for itself. Each morning, ask yourself important questions. What kind of person am I becoming through my daily habits? What thoughts dominate my mind repeatedly? What behaviors are damaging my future? What distractions steal my attention? What standards must rise immediately? Honest self-reflection creates awareness. Awareness creates change. Most people avoid silence because silence forces self-confrontation. Constant noise becomes a way to escape responsibility. But growth requires reflection. You cannot improve a life you refuse to examine. Morning declarations create a daily moment of examination. They interrupt automatic living. They remind you that life should be lived intentionally rather than emotionally drifting from one distraction to another. Time moves quickly. Years disappear faster than most people expect. One day, many people suddenly realize they spent decades reacting instead of building. Decades doubting themselves instead of developing themselves. Decades consuming instead of creating. Do not wait for crisis before changing your mindset. Train your mind before difficulty arrives. Build emotional discipline before chaos begins. Strength developed during peaceful seasons becomes valuable during painful seasons. Your future self is shaped by what you repeatedly practice now, not occasionally. Repeatedly. Every morning you are either strengthening your mind or weakening it. There is no neutral direction. The thoughts you feed grow stronger over time. Feed discipline, feed gratitude, feed responsibility, feed courage, feed focus, starve excuses, starve victim thinking, starve distraction. A powerful life is rarely built through dramatic moments. It is usually built through ordinary disciplined mornings repeated consistently over many years. That is the hidden truth most people overlook. Success is often quiet before it becomes visible. A person wakes up early consistently, speaks with intention consistently, protects their focus consistently, improves their habits consistently, learns consistently, practices discipline consistently. Eventually, the results become impossible to ignore. But the transformation began internally long before anyone noticed externally. This is why your morning declarations matter more than appearances. Before money, before recognition, before achievement, there must first be internal leadership. Lead yourself first. Speak to yourself with honesty, strength, and direction before the world attempts to shape your identity for you. Refuse to begin each day mentally weak and distracted. Refuse to surrender your self-worth to opinions, trends, or temporary emotions. You already have enough evidence that life can become difficult unexpectedly. Build a mindset capable of enduring difficulty without losing direction. Build an identity rooted in discipline rather than external validation. Every morning you wake up with another opportunity to shape your mind intentionally. Use it wisely. Speak those lines with conviction. Remind yourself that your value does not disappear because progress feels slow. Remind yourself that discipline matters more than mood. Remind yourself that growth requires patience. Remind yourself that your future depends heavily on the habits you repeat daily. Then stand up and live according to those words. Because the world will always try to shape your mindset if you do not shape it yourself first. Chapter 2. Strengthen your discipline through powerful morning self-talk. Discipline is rarely destroyed in one dramatic moment. Most of the time it fades quietly through small daily decisions that seem harmless in the beginning. A person delays waking up early for one day. They avoid one responsibility. They break one promise to themselves. They choose comfort one more time, then another time. then another. Slowly, the mind adapts to inconsistency. Standards begin falling without notice. Energy becomes weaker. Focus becomes unstable. Confidence disappears because deep inside the person knows they are no longer trusting themselves. This is the hidden cost of weak discipline. It damages self-respect from the inside long before external results begin collapsing. Every person wants success until success demands structure. Many people love the idea of growth but resist the routines required to create it. They wait to feel inspired before taking action. They depend on emotional excitement to stay committed. But emotions rise and fall constantly. Discipline is different. Discipline continues even when motivation becomes quiet. That is why morning self-talk matters so deeply. The first voice you hear each day should not be fear, distraction, or doubt. It should be a voice that reminds you of your responsibilities, your standards, and your direction. Strong self-talk trains the mind to act intentionally instead of emotionally. It creates inner order before the outside world creates pressure. Most people underestimate how much their internal conversations shape their behavior. A person who wakes up saying they are tired, overwhelmed, and incapable begins the day already defeated mentally. Their body follows the direction of their thoughts. Their focus becomes weaker. Their effort becomes smaller. They begin searching for comfort instead of progress. The opposite is also true. A person who wakes up and speaks strength into their mind begins building emotional control before challenges appear. They remind themselves that discipline matters more than temporary emotion. They remind themselves that comfort rarely creates growth. They remind themselves that their future depends on what they repeatedly do, not what they occasionally wish for. Morning self-talk is not fake positivity. It is mental preparation. Athletes prepare mentally before competition. Soldiers prepare mentally before entering dangerous situations. Leaders prepare mentally before making difficult decisions. Strong people understand that performance begins in the mind before it appears through action. Your mornings are training sessions for your identity. The problem with many people is not lack of intelligence. It is lack of self-command. They know what they should do, but they struggle to follow through consistently. They know they should protect their time. They know they should improve their habits. They know they should stop delaying important work. Yet they continue repeating the same cycles because their mind has become comfortable with excuses. Excuses feel safe in the moment but destructive over time. Every excuse teaches the mind weakness. Every avoided responsibility trains the brain to escape discomfort. Over time, even small challenges begin feeling heavy because the mind has lost resilience. This is why powerful morning self-talk must become part of your daily discipline. The words you repeat consistently either strengthen your standards or weaken them. When you wake up each morning, there is a battle happening immediately, even if nobody else can see it. One side of your mind wants comfort. The other side wants growth. One side wants to avoid effort. The other side understands that improvement requires discomfort. The outcome of your life depends on which voice becomes stronger over time. Most people feed the weaker voice constantly. They tell themselves they will start tomorrow. They say they are too tired. They convince themselves that one more delay will not matter. They wait for perfect conditions before taking action. Weeks pass, months pass, years pass. Their goals remain dreams because their habits never changed. Discipline begins when your words stop protecting your excuses. Speak to yourself honestly in the morning. Remind yourself that your future is being built by today's actions. Remind yourself that every decision matters even when nobody notices immediately. Remind yourself that small, consistent effort creates greater results than occasional bursts of motivation. There is something powerful about standing up early while the world remains quiet. The silence forces honesty. In those early moments, you cannot hide behind distractions. You face yourself directly. Your habits become visible. Your discipline becomes visible. Your mindset becomes visible. That quiet time can either strengthen you or expose you. A person with strong self-leadership uses mornings to build clarity. They do not immediately flood their mind with noise. They do not begin the day reacting to other people's opinions. They first establish their own mental direction. This creates stability. A disciplined mind does not change direction every hour based on emotion. It follows principles, it follows commitments, It follows standards even during difficult days. Many people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline means becoming cold, emotionless, or harsh toward yourself. Real discipline is deeper than that. Discipline is self-respect expressed through consistent behavior. It is choosing actions that protect your future instead of only satisfying the present moment. A disciplined person still feels tired sometimes. They still experience doubt, frustration, and stress. The difference is they do not allow temporary emotions to control permanent decisions. That ability changes lives. Imagine waking up every morning with complete trust in yourself. Imagine knowing that when you make a promise to yourself, you follow through. Imagine no longer depending on random motivation to stay focused. That level of self-trust creates peace because your mind stops arguing with itself constantly. Many people live with inner conflict every day. One part of them wants growth while another part keeps sabotaging progress. This creates guilt, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. The solution is not harsher self-hatred. The solution is stronger self-leadership. Your morning self-talk becomes part of that leadership. Speak words that demand action from yourself. Speak words that remind you who you are trying to become. Speak with calm authority inside your own mind. Tell yourself that discipline is more valuable than comfort. Tell yourself that consistency matters more than speed. Tell yourself that excuses will not build the future you want. Then prove those words through action. Action is where self-talk becomes reality. Without action, even the strongest words lose meaning. But when words and behavior align, something powerful happens internally. Confidence begins growing naturally because your mind sees evidence that you are becoming reliable. Self-confidence is not built only through success. It is built through self-trust. Every completed responsibility strengthens that trust. Every disciplined morning strengthens that trust. Every moment where you choose growth over comfort strengthens that trust. The opposite also happens quietly. Every ignored responsibility weakens self-trust. Every broken promise damages confidence. Every repeated excuse teaches the mind that your words cannot be trusted. This is why discipline must become personal. You are not building discipline to impress people. You are building it because your future depends on it. Without discipline, talent gets wasted. Opportunity disappears, potential remains unused. Dreams stay trapped inside imagination. The world rewards consistent people, not perfect people, consistent people. A person who improves a little every day eventually becomes difficult to stop. Small disciplines repeated over time create massive transformation. Reading 10 pages daily changes knowledge. Exercising consistently changes energy. Saving money regularly changes financial stability. Speaking intentionally every morning changes mindset. Tiny actions become identity over time. Many people search for dramatic breakthroughs while ignoring daily habits. They want immediate transformation without patient repetition. But life rarely works that way. Lasting strength is built gradually through repeated choices. Morning self-talk helps reinforce those choices. When you remind yourself daily that your actions matter, you become more conscious throughout the day. You begin catching excuses faster. You notice distractions sooner. You become less controlled by emotional impulses because your mind has already been trained early in the morning. Training the mind matters because life becomes harder when the mind becomes undisciplined. An undisciplined mind wastes enormous energy. It jumps constantly between distractions. It chases comfort endlessly. It overthinks small problems. It quits too early. It avoids difficult conversations. It seeks immediate pleasure instead of long-term growth. This creates regret. Nothing destroys peace faster than knowing you are wasting your own potential. Deep down, most people already know what they should improve. They know which habits are damaging them. They know where they lack discipline. But awareness alone changes nothing. Action must follow awareness. That is why mornings are powerful. They create an opportunity to reset before the day begins. No matter how poorly yesterday went, you still have a chance to respond differently today. Do not underestimate the power of beginning again. One disciplined morning can begin rebuilding momentum. One intentional decision can interrupt destructive patterns. One honest conversation with yourself can change the direction of your life. Many successful people are not extraordinary because of talent alone. They simply learned how to manage themselves consistently. They learned how to continue working when emotions became unstable. They learned how to maintain focus while others became distracted. This ability is available to anyone willing to practice it. Your environment may not always support your growth. Some people around you may encourage laziness, negativity, or distraction. Some may mock your discipline because your improvement reminds them of their lack of effort. Do not allow outside opinions to weaken your standards. Protect your mind carefully. Not every voice deserves access to your thinking. If you constantly consume negativity, your mindset eventually reflects it. If you surround yourself with excuses, your standards slowly decline. Strong morning self-talk acts like protection against outside influence. It reminds you that your life has direction. It reminds you that your goals matter. It reminds you that discipline creates freedom while laziness creates suffering. Freedom is often misunderstood. Many people believe freedom means doing whatever feels good in the moment. But that type of living usually creates chaos. Real freedom comes from self-control. A disciplined person has more freedom because they are not constantly trapped by destructive habits, emotions, or impulses. Discipline creates options. A healthy body creates physical freedom. Financial discipline creates opportunities. Emotional discipline creates peace. Mental discipline creates focus. Time discipline creates progress. Without discipline, life becomes reactive. A reactive person spends their days responding emotionally to everything around them. Their mood changes constantly based on circumstances. Their productivity depends on motivation. Their future becomes unstable because there is no structure holding their life together. Structure protects progress. This is why morning routines matter so much. They create order before chaos enters the day. They remind you that you still control your actions regardless of circumstances. There will always be difficult days. Some mornings you will feel mentally exhausted. Some days stress will follow you from the moment you wake up. During those moments, discipline becomes even more important. Anybody can stay focused during easy seasons. Real character appears during hard seasons. A disciplined person continues moving forward even when emotions become uncomfortable. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but consistently enough to keep growing. That consistency separates strong minds from weak ones. Weak minds seek escape from every discomfort. Strong minds accept comfort as part of growth. They understand that temporary pain often creates future strength. Every morning ask yourself important questions. Are my habits building the future I want? Am I becoming mentally stronger or weaker through my daily choices? Am I feeding discipline or feeding excuses? Am I respecting my potential or wasting it? Answer honestly. Honesty creates clarity. Clarity creates action. Your life will not improve through wishful thinking alone. It improves when disciplined action becomes part of your identity. And identity is shaped daily through repeated thoughts and behaviors. This is why your self-talk matters. The words you repeat become mental instructions. Speak carelessly long enough, and your behavior becomes careless. Speak intentionally long enough, and your standards begin rising naturally. Guard your internal language carefully. Do not constantly call yourself lazy, useless, broken, or hopeless. Those labels weaken effort before action even begins. Instead, speak with accountability and strength. Acknowledge weaknesses without surrendering to them. Growth requires patience. Discipline requires repetition. Lasting transformation requires time. Many people quit too early because they expect immediate results. But meaningful growth often happens quietly before it becomes visible externally. Continue showing up. Continue practicing discipline, even when progress feels slow. The strongest people are often ordinary individuals who simply refuse to quit improving themselves. Your future is shaped by daily decisions repeated consistently over years. That truth should create urgency, not panic. Urgency to protect your mornings, urgency to guard your focus, urgency to train your mind intentionally. Every sunrise gives you another opportunity to strengthen your discipline. Use that opportunity wisely. Speak to yourself with strength before the world fills your mind with noise. Build your inner stability before pressure arrives. Train yourself to follow standards instead of moods. Then step into the day prepared to act like the person you keep telling yourself you want to become. Chapter 3. Replace negative thinking with confident and focused daily words. The human mind listens carefully to whatever is repeated most often. It does not always separate truth from habit. If a person spends years speaking with doubt, fear, and negativity inside their own thoughts, the mind slowly accepts those words as reality. A person may begin believing they are incapable long before they actually test their abilities. They may believe they are destined to fail before making a serious effort. They may convince themselves that confidence belongs only to other people while they remain trapped inside insecurity. Most limitations begin internally before they appear externally. Negative thinking rarely arrives as one loud, dramatic voice. Most of the time it speaks quietly and repeatedly. It appears in ordinary moments throughout the day. A person looks in the mirror and immediately criticizes themselves. They make a small mistake and instantly call themselves stupid. They compare their progress to someone else and decide they are falling behind in life. They face difficulty and immediately assume things will never improve. Over time, these patterns create mental exhaustion. The mind becomes heavy when every thought carries discouragement. Energy disappears when every challenge is interpreted as proof of weakness. Hope becomes difficult to maintain when internal conversations constantly focus on failure, disappointment, and fear. This is why changing your words changes more than emotions. It changes direction. Confident and focused daily words train the brain to respond differently to life. They help create emotional stability during stressful situations. They remind the mind to search for solutions instead of surrender. They shift attention away from imagined defeat and toward meaningful action. Many people think confidence is something people are born with. In reality, confidence is often built through repeated mental conditioning and consistent behavior. A person becomes more confident when they repeatedly prove to themselves that they can face discomfort without collapsing emotionally. The language you use daily either strengthens that process or weakens it. Imagine carrying a voice inside your mind that constantly predicts failure. That voice would affect every decision you make. You would hesitate before opportunities. You would avoid risks. You would doubt your own ability before beginning important work. Even simple tasks would feel heavier because your thoughts would already be draining your energy. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine training your mind to speak with calm focus and self-belief. Imagine facing challenges while reminding yourself that problems can be handled. Imagine responding to setbacks with patience instead of panic. Imagine building the habit of encouraging yourself instead of attacking yourself. That mental shift changes behavior immediately. People often become trapped inside negative thinking because it feels familiar. The brain adapts to repeated emotional patterns even when those patterns are harmful. Some individuals become so used to self-criticism that encouragement feels unnatural at first. They trust negative thoughts more than positive ones because negativity has been repeated for years. But repetition can also heal the mind. Every time you intentionally replace destructive thoughts with focused and confident language, you begin weakening old mental habits. This process takes patience because the mind does not transform overnight. Years of negative thinking cannot be erased in a single morning, but daily intentional words slowly reshape your inner environment. The important thing is consistency. One confident thought occasionally will not change a life. Repeated confident thinking practiced daily begins changing identity gradually. The same principle applies to focus. A distracted mind becomes stronger when attention is trained consistently. Many people suffer not because life is impossible, but because their thoughts are constantly fighting against them. They wake up already overwhelmed before the day even begins. Their mind immediately replays unfinished problems, future fears, and past disappointments. They carry mental noise everywhere they go. Noise destroys focus. A focused mind becomes powerful because energy stops leaking into unnecessary thinking. Instead of imagining endless worst-case scenarios, a focused person concentrates on what can actually be controlled. They direct attention toward action rather than endless emotional reactions. This mindset creates calm strength. One reason negative thinking becomes dangerous is because the mind naturally searches for evidence supporting its dominant beliefs. If a person constantly says nothing ever works out, they begin noticing every disappointment more than every opportunity. If a person constantly believes people dislike them, they begin interpreting ordinary situations as rejection. Thoughts influence perception. This is why daily words matter so much. Your internal language teaches your brain what to notice. Focus repeatedly on fear, and your mind becomes trained to detect danger everywhere. Focus repeatedly on possibility, growth, and discipline, and your mind begins recognizing opportunities more often. This does not mean ignoring reality or pretending life is always easy. Stoic wisdom teaches clear observation without emotional surrender. Difficulties exist. Failure exists. Uncertainty exists. But negative thinking exaggerates problems while reducing personal power. Confident thinking faces reality while still believing action matters. There is a major difference between honesty and hopelessness. Honest thinking says this situation is difficult but manageable. Hopeless thinking says nothing will ever improve. Honest thinking accepts responsibility. Negative thinking searches endlessly for reasons to quit. Many people unknowingly rehearse defeat every day through their words. They say things like, "I always mess everything up. I will probably fail anyway. Nothing good happens for me." These statements may seem harmless in the moment, but repeated language shapes emotional patterns deeply. Your words become emotional instructions. A person who repeatedly speaks with confidence begins feeling more emotionally prepared over time. A person who repeatedly speaks with focus becomes less distracted by temporary emotions. Internal language affects posture, energy, effort, and resilience. Watch how people speak during difficult moments. Weak thinking often sounds emotional, reactive, and helpless. Strong thinking sounds calm, deliberate, and solution-focused. Strong people still experience fear, stress, and disappointment, but they refuse to let those emotions completely control their perspective. Perspective influences endurance. Life becomes heavier when the mind constantly magnifies problems. Small setbacks feel enormous, delays feel catastrophic, criticism feels personal. A negative mind drains itself through overreaction. This is why mental discipline matters. You must become aware of your inner conversations instead of allowing thoughts to run uncontrolled. Many people spend years improving external areas of life while ignoring the condition of their mind. They work hard physically but neglect mental habits completely. Then they wonder why peace, confidence, and focus remain unstable. The mind requires training just like the body. If someone eats unhealthy food daily, their physical condition eventually suffers. The same principle applies mentally. If a person feeds their mind fear, negativity, comparison, and self-hatred constantly, their emotional condition weakens over time. Guard your mental diet carefully. Pay attention to the words you consume from other people as well. Some environments constantly reinforce negativity. Certain individuals criticize everything, complain endlessly, and drain emotional energy from everyone around them. Spend enough time around those voices, and your own mindset slowly changes. Protecting your focus sometimes requires limiting unnecessary negativity. This does not mean becoming disconnected from reality. It means refusing to allow destructive thinking to dominate your inner world. You cannot build confidence while surrounding yourself with endless discouragement. Confident daily words should feel grounded and honest. Empty exaggeration rarely creates lasting change. Instead, focus on statements connected to action, responsibility, and growth. Remind yourself that progress is possible through consistency. Remind yourself that mistakes are opportunities to learn rather than proof of worthlessness. Remind yourself that discipline matters more than perfection. Remind yourself that difficult moments are temporary. These thoughts strengthen resilience. Resilience grows when the mind stops collapsing during discomfort. A resilient person does not interpret every setback as the end of their journey. They recover faster because their internal language supports growth instead of destruction. One of the most harmful habits is constant comparison. Modern life makes comparison almost unavoidable. People scroll through carefully edited images and begin believing everyone else is happier, more successful, and more attractive. They compare their private struggles to someone else's public highlights. Comparison weakens focus because attention leaves your own path completely. A focused person measures progress differently. They ask whether they are improving compared to who they were yesterday. They understand that every person moves through life differently. Some people begin later, Some people face harder obstacles. Some people require more time to develop confidence. Your journey deserves patience. Negative thinking often becomes strongest when progress feels slow. A person may begin improving habits but expect instant transformation. When results do not appear immediately, discouragement returns. This is where focused daily words become essential. Speak with patience during slow seasons. Remind yourself that meaningful growth usually happens quietly before visible results appear. A tree does not grow stronger overnight. Strength develops gradually through consistent nourishment. Human growth follows the same principle. Many people quit during the invisible stage of improvement. They stop before results have enough time to appear. Focus helps prevent this because focus keeps attention on the process rather than immediate rewards. Process creates transformation. If your focus stays connected only to quick results, you will become emotionally unstable whenever progress slows down. But if your focus stays connected to daily effort, your mindset becomes steadier. A calm, focused mind handles setbacks better because identity no longer depends entirely on outcomes. You begin valuing discipline, courage, and persistence instead of only temporary success. This creates emotional freedom. Confident thinking also changes how you communicate with other people. Individuals who respect themselves internally often speak more calmly externally. They no longer seek constant validation because their worth is not completely controlled by outside opinions. Confidence creates stability in relationships, decisions, and goals. People trust themselves more when their thoughts stop attacking them constantly. They become more willing to attempt difficult things because failure no longer destroys their identity completely. Fear loses power when the mind becomes supportive instead of hostile. Think about how different life feels when your own thoughts become allies instead of enemies. Imagine entering challenges with encouragement instead of constant self-doubt. Imagine waking up and speaking words that strengthen your focus instead of draining your energy immediately. That internal change influences everything else. Your body responds differently when your mind becomes calmer. Your actions become more intentional. Your emotional reactions become less chaotic. Even difficult days become easier to manage because your thoughts stop creating unnecessary suffering. Many people spend their entire lives waiting for external circumstances to improve before they allow themselves to feel confident, peaceful, or focused. But real strength begins internally first. Train your mind before life tests it. Develop daily mental habits that strengthen clarity, patience, and courage. Replace destructive language with words connected to responsibility, growth, and direction. Stop rehearsing failure mentally before situations even happen. The future remains uncertain for everyone. Negative thinking cannot protect you from uncertainty. It only steals energy from the present moment. Focused thinking creates movement instead of paralysis. When problems appear, ask yourself what action can still be taken. When fear appears, remind yourself that discomfort does not mean weakness. When mistakes happen, choose learning over self-destruction. This approach creates maturity. Emotionally mature people do not spend all day insulting themselves for imperfections. They acknowledge flaws while continuing to move forward constructively. Your mind becomes stronger through practice. Every day provides another opportunity to guide your thinking intentionally. Every moment of awareness gives you the ability to interrupt destructive thought patterns before they control behavior completely. You do not need to become perfect immediately. You need to become intentional consistently. The way you speak to yourself today influences the person you slowly become tomorrow. Guard those words carefully. Speak with focus during confusion. Speak with patience during struggle. Speak with confidence during uncertainty. Because a mind trained with strong and focused language becomes far harder to break when life becomes difficult. Chapter 4. Build unstoppable habits by repeating intentional morning affirmations. Every human life is built from habits, whether people realize it or not. The way a person wakes up, the way they think, the way they respond to pressure, the way they spend time, the way they speak to themselves, and the way they handle discomfort slowly shapes their future. Most people do not fail because they lack dreams. They fail because their daily habits quietly move them away from the life they want. Habits are powerful because they operate even when emotions change. A person does not need to debate every action once behavior becomes automatic. This is why destructive habits are dangerous, and constructive habits are life-changing. Repeated actions eventually become identity. A person who practices laziness daily slowly becomes comfortable with weakness. A person who practices discipline daily begins carrying strength naturally. Morning affirmations can become one of the most important habits in a person's life when used correctly. Not because repeating words alone creates magic, but because intentional words influence, focused decisions, emotional control, and daily behavior. The mind follows repeated direction. If the first moments of every morning are filled with intentional thoughts, the entire day begins differently. Many people wake up already defeated mentally. Before leaving the bed, they think about stress, pressure, unfinished work, disappointment, and fear. Their body feels heavy because their thoughts are heavy. They begin each morning emotionally disorganized. Then they wonder why focus disappears quickly during the day. A chaotic morning often creates a chaotic mind. Intentional affirmations create a different beginning. They remind the mind what matters before distractions enter. They create mental direction before outside voices begin demanding attention. A person who trains themselves to repeat focused, empowering statements every morning slowly changes their internal environment. This process is not about pretending life is perfect. It is about building mental structure. Without structure, the mind drifts toward negativity very easily. Human attention naturally focuses on danger, problems, and uncertainty. This instinct once helped people survive physical threats, but in modern life it often creates unnecessary mental suffering. People replay embarrassing moments for years. They worry endlessly about future situations that may never happen. They allow small setbacks to destroy emotional stability. Intentional affirmations interrupt that cycle. When you wake up and deliberately speak words connected to discipline, patience, focus, gratitude, and resilience, you begin teaching your brain a different emotional pattern. You stop allowing random thoughts to control your mindset completely. Most people underestimate the power of repetition. Repeated thinking becomes familiar. Familiar thoughts become beliefs. Beliefs influence actions. Actions repeated over time create results. This means your future is connected deeply to what you repeatedly tell yourself. If every morning begins with thoughts like "nothing will improve" or "I will never succeed," your mind eventually starts acting according to those expectations. Energy drops, effort weakens, focus disappears. The person slowly becomes what their inner voice repeatedly predicts. But the reverse is also true. A person who consistently reminds themselves that they can improve through discipline begins approaching life differently. They become more willing to act despite fear. They become more patient during slow progress. They recover from setbacks faster because their internal foundation is stronger. Morning affirmations should never feel empty or artificial. The strongest affirmations are connected to values and actions. Instead of unrealistic fantasies, focus on statements that reinforce personal responsibility and growth. Speak words that remind you to stay disciplined when comfort becomes tempting. Speak words that strengthen focus when distractions appear. Speak words that encourage patience during difficult seasons. Speak words that remind you that consistency matters even when motivation disappears. The goal is not emotional excitement for a few minutes. The goal is long-term mental conditioning. There is a major difference between temporary motivation and lasting habits. Motivation changes constantly because emotions change constantly. Some mornings you feel inspired. Other mornings you feel exhausted. If your progress depends entirely on emotional energy, your discipline will always remain unstable. Habits create stability where emotions cannot. This is why repeating affirmations daily matters. Repetition builds familiarity. Familiarity reduces resistance. The more consistently you train your mind, the more naturally positive disciplined thinking begins appearing throughout the day. At first, intentional affirmations may feel uncomfortable. Some people are so used to self-criticism that encouraging thoughts seem unnatural. Years of negative thinking create deep mental patterns, but discomfort during change is normal. A weak habit loses strength only when a stronger habit replaces it consistently. Mental habits work the same way physical habits work. A person who never exercises feels resistance when beginning training. The body complains, energy feels low, muscles feel weak. But repeated effort slowly changes physical condition. The mind changes through similar repetition. Consistent affirmations create emotional endurance over time. Many people spend years speaking harshly to themselves without realizing the damage being created. They insult themselves after mistakes. They constantly focus on flaws. They speak with hopelessness during challenges. Over time, the mind begins expecting failure because failure has been rehearsed internally for years. This weakens action before action even begins. Intentional affirmations help rebuild trust in yourself. They remind you that growth remains possible regardless of past mistakes. They encourage forward movement instead of endless regret. They train the brain to focus on progress instead of permanent self-condemnation. One powerful aspect of morning affirmations is that they create awareness. Many people move through life unconsciously reacting emotionally to every circumstance. They never pause long enough to guide their own thinking. They simply absorb stress, distraction, and negativity automatically. Intentional mornings create interruption. That interruption matters because awareness is the beginning of change. Once you become aware of your thoughts, you stop becoming controlled by every emotional impulse. You begin noticing destructive mental patterns earlier. You begin redirecting your focus more intentionally. This creates emotional maturity. Emotionally mature people understand that thoughts influence behavior. They take responsibility for what they repeatedly feed their mind. They recognize that peace, confidence, and resilience require daily maintenance. Morning affirmations become part of that maintenance. Think about how many voices compete for attention every day. News headlines spread fear. Social media encourages comparison. Negative conversations drain emotional energy. Advertising constantly tells people they are incomplete. Without intentional mental habits, the mind absorbs all of this noise continuously. That noise creates confusion. A confused mind struggles to maintain discipline because attention becomes scattered. Goals lose clarity, priorities become weak. Emotions begin controlling decisions more than wisdom does. Affirmations create mental alignment. They reconnect you with your values before distractions begin pulling your attention in different directions. They remind you what kind of person you are trying to become. They strengthen identity through repetition. Identity matters because people act according to who they believe they are. A person who identifies as disciplined begins protecting routines more seriously. A person who identifies as resilient handles difficulty differently. A person who identifies as focused becomes less vulnerable to distraction. Morning affirmations help reinforce those identities daily. The words do not create change alone. The behavior connected to the words creates change. But words influence behavior significantly because they shape emotional direction. Imagine waking up every morning and reminding yourself that your actions today are shaping your future. Imagine beginning each day by strengthening patience instead of panic. Imagine teaching your mind daily that temporary discomfort should not control long-term decisions. That consistency builds inner strength slowly. The strongest habits are usually simple. Many people complicate personal growth by searching endlessly for dramatic transformation. They want sudden breakthroughs, they want instant confidence, they want immediate success. But real growth often looks ordinary in the beginning. Small, repeated actions create extraordinary outcomes over time. Reading a few pages daily develops knowledge. Saving small amounts consistently develops financial stability. Exercising regularly develops physical strength. Speaking intentional affirmations every morning develops mental resilience. The power exists in repetition. Some mornings you will not feel emotionally strong. Some days your mind will resist discipline completely. During those moments, affirmations become even more valuable because they remind you that your standards should not depend entirely on temporary feelings. Feelings change quickly. Values remain stable. A disciplined person learns how to continue acting according to values, even when emotions become uncomfortable. This ability separates people who grow consistently from people who remain trapped inside emotional cycles. Morning affirmations help strengthen that ability by reinforcing principles daily. One important truth many people avoid is that habits eventually expose priorities. A person may say success matters while repeatedly wasting hours every day. Another person may say peace matters while constantly feeding their mind negativity. Habits reveal what is truly being practiced, not just what is being desired. Intentional affirmations help reconnect words with actions. When you speak clearly about discipline, focus, patience, and growth each morning, you become more aware throughout the day of whether your actions align with those values. This awareness increases self-accountability. Self-accountability creates freedom because it removes dependence on constant external pressure. A person who learns to guide themselves internally no longer needs endless reminders from others. They begin developing internal leadership. That leadership changes everything. People who cannot control their habits often feel trapped by life. They procrastinate important responsibilities. They lose focus easily. They break promises to themselves repeatedly. Eventually, frustration grows because deep down they know their potential is being wasted. Wasted potential creates quiet suffering. Morning affirmations help rebuild momentum because they encourage intentional living. They remind you daily that your choices matter. They strengthen your willingness to act with purpose, instead of drifting emotionally from one distraction to another. The modern world rewards distraction constantly. Endless entertainment, instant gratification, and constant stimulation weaken attention spans. Many people struggle to sit quietly with their thoughts because their mind has become addicted to noise. Affirmations create moments of intentional stillness. That stillness becomes valuable because it allows you to reset mentally before entering the demands of the day. Instead of immediately reacting to stress, you begin the morning by reinforcing clarity, direction, and discipline. Over time, this practice changes emotional patterns deeply. You begin responding to problems more calmly. You become less controlled by impulsive emotions. You recover from disappointment faster because your mindset has been trained repeatedly. Training matters because life will eventually test every person. Difficult seasons arrive unexpectedly. Plans fail. Relationships become complicated. Financial pressure appears. Health struggles happen. During those moments, weak mental habits collapse quickly. Strong mental habits create endurance. A person who has spent years intentionally strengthening their mind through disciplined thoughts often handles adversity differently. They still feel pain and stress, but they do not lose themselves completely inside those emotions. Morning affirmations contribute to that strength gradually. Never underestimate the impact of daily mental preparation. A focused, intentional beginning influences the rest of the day more than most people realize. Your morning mindset affects decisions, energy, patience, communication, and emotional reactions. Protect those early moments carefully. Do not allow negativity to dominate your mornings automatically. Train your mind deliberately. Speak with purpose. Reinforce habits connected to growth, wisdom, and resilience. Then follow those words with action. Because unstoppable habits are not created through wishful thinking. They are created through intentional repetition practiced consistently long after excitement fades. Chapter 5. Challenge your excuses and take responsibility every single day. Every person wants a better future, but very few people are willing to examine the behaviors quietly damaging their present life. It is easier to blame circumstances than to confront personal habits. It is easier to complain about missed opportunities than to admit that fear delayed action. It is easier to point at difficult conditions than to ask difficult questions about discipline, consistency, and responsibility. Excuses protect comfort, but destroy growth. Most excuses sound reasonable in the beginning. A person says they are too tired to start improving. They say they will begin next week when life becomes less stressful. They say they need perfect conditions before taking action. They convince themselves that one more delay will not matter. Day after day, these thoughts become routines. The person slowly adapts to postponing progress. Years pass quietly this way. Many people are not held back by lack of potential. They are held back by repeated avoidance. Every avoided responsibility weakens confidence because deep inside the mind knows the truth. The truth is painful sometimes. A person knows when they are wasting time. They know when excuses are replacing action. They know when comfort has become more important than growth. This creates inner frustration. A person cannot continuously betray their own goals without eventually losing respect for themselves. Self-respect grows when actions align with values. It weakens when words and behavior constantly conflict. That is why responsibility changes lives. Taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for every problem in existence. Life contains unfair situations, unexpected pain, and circumstances outside personal control. Responsibility means recognizing that your response still matters. It means refusing to surrender your future entirely to excuses, emotions, or outside conditions. Responsible people ask different questions. Instead of asking why life is difficult, they ask what can still be improved. Instead of focusing only on obstacles, they search for useful action. Instead of waiting for rescue, they begin building strength. This mindset creates momentum. Momentum is powerful because progress often begins slowly. A person who takes responsibility consistently starts noticing small improvements. They become more disciplined with time. They stop wasting as much energy on avoidance. They begin trusting themselves more because they are finally following through on important actions. Excuses do the opposite. Excuses create stagnation. They stop movement before effort begins. A person trapped in excuses often spends more time explaining why change feels difficult than actually creating change. The mind becomes weak when it constantly practices avoidance. Think about how many opportunities disappear because people hesitate too long. Some individuals spend years waiting to feel fully ready before beginning anything meaningful. They wait for confidence before taking action. They wait for certainty before making decisions. They wait for motivation before improving habits. Meanwhile, life continues moving forward. Growth rarely begins with perfect emotional conditions. Most improvement starts while a person still feels uncertain, uncomfortable, or afraid. Responsibility means acting wisely even when emotions are unstable. This principle separates mature thinking from childish thinking. Childish thinking wants immediate comfort and avoids accountability. Mature thinking accepts that long-term peace often requires short-term discipline. A mature person understands that difficult actions today can prevent future regret. Regret becomes heavy with time. There are people carrying years of regret because they kept delaying important decisions. Some regret not protecting their health earlier. Some regret wasting opportunities. Some regret remaining passive while life moved around them. Others regret spending too much time blaming everyone except themselves. Blame may feel emotionally satisfying for a moment, but it removes personal power. The moment a person believes their entire future depends only on other people or external conditions, they stop trying to improve what is still possible. This creates helplessness. Responsibility creates strength because it restores action. A responsible person says, "This situation may not be ideal, but I still control my effort, choices, habits, and mindset." That perspective changes emotional energy immediately. The person stops focusing only on what cannot be controlled and begins improving what can. This creates emotional stability. People who constantly avoid responsibility often experience repeated chaos because they never address the root causes of their problems honestly. They continue repeating harmful patterns while hoping circumstances magically improve. But patterns repeated daily eventually shape identity. A person who constantly procrastinates becomes comfortable delaying progress. A person who constantly makes excuses trains the mind to escape discomfort automatically. A person who avoids difficult conversation weakens communication skills over time. Habits either strengthen character or weaken it. This is why self-examination matters deeply. Every person should ask difficult questions regularly. Am I living according to my values or only according to convenience? Am I making progress or only talking about progress? Am I feeding discipline or feeding avoidance? Honest answers create growth. Many people avoid honesty because honesty demands change. It is easier to remain distracted than to confront wasted potential directly. Distraction has become one of the biggest escapes in modern life. Endless entertainment keeps people busy while their goals slowly disappear into the background. Some individuals spend more time escaping reality than improving reality. Responsibility interrupts that pattern. It forces awareness, it forces ownership, it forces action. This does not mean becoming harsh or hateful toward yourself. Growth requires accountability, not self-destruction. There is a difference between recognizing mistakes and defining yourself entirely by those mistakes. A wise person learns from failure without becoming trapped inside shame. Shame without action creates paralysis. Responsibility creates movement. When you take ownership of your habits, you stop waiting for perfect circumstances before improving yourself. You begin understanding that small, consistent actions matter more than dramatic intentions. Many people love talking about goals. Fewer people love building the routines required to achieve those goals. The routine with responsibility becomes visible. Waking up earlier when comfort says stay in bed requires responsibility. Managing money wisely instead of spending emotionally requires responsibility. Exercising consistently requires responsibility. Protecting your focus requires responsibility. Admitting mistakes honestly requires responsibility. These actions are not always exciting. Often they feel ordinary and repetitive. But ordinary disciplined actions repeated consistently create extraordinary long-term results. The strongest people are usually not the most talented. Often they are simply the most accountable. They refuse to endlessly negotiate with excuses. They understand that emotions change constantly but responsibilities remain. There will always be reasons to avoid difficult work. There will always be distractions competing for attention. There will always be moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. But your future is shaped most strongly by the decisions made during those moments. Every excuse accepted weakens self-trust slightly. Every responsibility completed strengthens self-respect slightly. Over time, these small moments create completely different lives. A person who practices responsibility develops confidence naturally because they know they can rely on themselves. They stop making endless promises without action. Their words gain meaning because their behavior consistently supports those words. That creates inner peace. Peace does not come only from comfort. Real peace often comes from knowing you are living with integrity. It comes from knowing you are no longer running away from your responsibilities. Running away creates hidden anxiety. Many people feel mentally exhausted because they carry unfinished responsibilities constantly. Unfinished work, unfinished goals, unfinished conversations, and unfinished commitments create emotional pressure in the background of daily life. Responsibility reduces this burden by encouraging direct action instead of endless avoidance. One difficult conversation handled honestly can create more peace than months of overthinking. One disciplined decision can interrupt years of unhealthy habits. One moment of responsibility can begin rebuilding a damaged life. Never underestimate the power of one honest decision. People often imagine transformation as one dramatic event. Real transformation usually happens through repeated moments of responsibility. A person chooses to stop making excuses one day at a time. They choose discipline repeatedly. They choose honesty repeatedly. They choose growth repeatedly. That repetition creates character. Character matters because life eventually tests everyone. During difficult seasons, weak habits become exposed quickly. A person who constantly escapes responsibility struggles heavily when pressure increases. A person who practices accountability consistently handles hardship with greater stability. Strong character is built before crisis arrives. This is why daily responsibility matters even during ordinary days. Simple actions train the mind. Keeping promises to yourself matters. Finishing what you start matters. Managing time wisely matters. Speaking truthfully matters. Each responsible action strengthens identity quietly. Many people search for external solutions while ignoring internal disorder. They want better results without better habits. They want confidence without discipline. They want peace without self-control. Life rarely works that way. Your external life often reflects your internal habits over time. A distracted, undisciplined person usually creates distracted, undisciplined results. A focused, responsible person usually creates stronger outcomes gradually. This process requires patience because meaningful progress takes time. Some people quit improving too early because results are not immediate. They expect dramatic change within days, then become discouraged. Responsibility includes patience. A responsible person understands that consistent effort compounds slowly. They continue showing up even when progress feels invisible temporarily. This mindset prevents emotional extremes. Instead of becoming overly excited one day and completely discourage the next. They remain steady. They focus on process instead of constant emotional reactions. Steady effort creates reliability. Reliability becomes powerful because most people are inconsistent. Many start strongly but disappear when discomfort appears. Responsible individuals continue moving even during difficult seasons. This builds resilience. Resilience does not mean never struggling emotionally. It means refusing to abandon your principles during struggle. Responsible people still feel tired, stressed, frustrated, and uncertain sometimes. The difference is, they continue taking ownership of their choices despite those emotions. That ability creates maturity. A mature mind understands that freedom and responsibility are connected deeply. Without responsibility, life becomes chaotic. Poor decisions create unnecessary suffering. Escaping accountability weakens discipline further. Real freedom comes from self-leadership. A person who can control impulses, habits, emotions, and priorities has far more control over life than someone constantly controlled by distraction and avoidance. This is why responsibility should not feel like punishment. It should feel like empowerment. You begin realizing that your actions still matter regardless of circumstances. You stop wasting years waiting for external rescue. You begin becoming the kind of person capable of improving situations gradually through discipline and wisdom. That process changes identity completely. A responsible person becomes calmer because they stop making excuses for everything. They accept reality honestly. They focus on solutions more than complaints. They build routines instead of depending entirely on motivation. This creates strength that cannot be easily shaken by temporary emotions. Every morning provides another opportunity to practice responsibility, another opportunity to stop delaying important changes, another opportunity to strengthen habits instead of excuses. Do not waste those opportunities carelessly. Time moves forward whether discipline exists or not. Years pass whether action is taken or not. Eventually, every person experiences the consequences of repeated choices. Your future is being shaped daily by what you tolerate from yourself now. Challenge your excuses honestly. Pay attention to the stories you repeat when avoiding growth. Listen carefully to the moments when comfort tries to convince you that delay is harmless. Then choose differently. Choose action over endless explanation. Choose accountability over blame. Choose discipline over temporary comfort. Because every time you take responsibility for your own life, you reclaim power that excuses were slowly stealing away. Chapter 6. Raise your standards and protect your future from distractions. Many people dream about a better future while continuing to tolerate habits that quietly destroy their potential every day. They want success but protect distractions. They want peace but surround themselves with noise. They want growth but continue accepting environments, behaviors, and routines that keep them mentally weak. A person cannot create a strong future while remaining loyal to destructive patterns. Your life eventually reflects your standards. Standards are not the goals you speak about publicly. Standards are the behaviors you accept privately. They are visible in the way you spend time when nobody watches. They appear in the way you manage your attention, energy, health, discipline, and relationships. A person with low standards constantly negotiates with excuses. A person with high standards understands that daily decisions shape long-term outcomes. This difference changes everything. Raising your standards begins with honesty. You must become willing to look directly at the distractions, stealing your future piece by piece. Many distractions do not look dangerous in the beginning. They often appear harmless, comfortable, and entertaining. But repeated distraction slowly weakens focus, discipline, and self-control. A distracted life becomes fragmented. The modern world rewards constant stimulation. Phones vibrate endlessly. Notifications interrupt attention every few minutes. Entertainment is available every second. Many people no longer know how to sit quietly without reaching for distraction immediately. Their mind becomes restless whenever silence appears. This constant stimulation damages focus deeply. Focus is one of the most valuable abilities a person can develop because focused energy creates meaningful progress. Without focus, even talented people struggle to build anything lasting. They begin projects without finishing them. They switch goals constantly. They react emotionally to every new distraction. Their attention becomes scattered across too many meaningless activities. Scattered attention creates weak results. Strong people understand that attention is a form of life energy. Wherever attention goes, time eventually follows. Wherever time goes, your future slowly develops. This means every distraction carries a hidden cost. The cost is not only wasted minutes. The cost is lost momentum, lost clarity, and lost potential. Many people never notice how much distraction is controlling them until years have already passed. They tell themselves they are busy while avoiding meaningful work. They spend hours consuming information but rarely applying it. They stay mentally occupied but emotionally unfulfilled, because deep inside they know they are not moving toward their highest potential. This creates quiet frustration. A person loses peace when their actions repeatedly move away from their values. Deep down, most people already know what habits are weakening them. They know when they are wasting too much time. They know when distractions are replacing discipline. They know when comfort has become more important than growth. But awareness alone changes nothing. Standards rise only when decisions change. A person raises their standards by refusing to tolerate behaviors that damage their future. This requires courage because comfort often feels easier in the moment. The mind naturally seeks immediate pleasure and avoids discomfort. But temporary comfort can create long-term suffering when it repeatedly delays growth. Discipline protects the future, while distraction slowly steals it. Think about how many dreams disappear because people lose focus repeatedly. Some individuals spend years saying they want change while remaining trapped inside routines that guarantee stagnation. They begin every week with good intentions, then allow distractions to consume their energy again. This cycle becomes exhausting. The person starts doubting themselves because their actions no longer match their ambitions. Confidence weakens when promises are repeatedly broken. Self-respect fades when distractions continue controlling important decisions. That is why standards matter more than motivation. Motivation changes daily. Standards remain stable. A person with high standards does not rely entirely on emotional excitement to make wise choices. They create boundaries, protecting their goals, even during difficult moments. Boundaries are acts of self-respect. A person who values their future protects their attention carefully. They become selective about what enters their mind. They understand that thoughts, habits, environments, and relationships all influence personal growth. Not everything deserves access to your energy. Some distractions arrive through unhealthy relationships. Certain people constantly encourage laziness, negativity, gossip, or emotional chaos. Spending too much time around destructive energy slowly changes your mindset, even if you originally had strong intentions. Human beings absorb environments more deeply than they realize. If your environment normalizes distraction, discipline becomes difficult. If your environment constantly encourages comfort, growth slows down. This is why strong people become intentional about who they listen to, what they consume, and how they spend their time. Protecting your future sometimes requires disappointing people who expect you to remain distracted with them. Not everyone will understand your growth immediately. Some individuals become uncomfortable when your standards begin rising because your discipline reminds them of their own neglected potential. Stay focused anyway. Your future deserves protection even if others misunderstand your choices. Many distractions appear emotionally harmless, but become dangerous through repetition. Endless scrolling late at night may seem small in the moment. Constant procrastination may seem temporary. Avoiding important responsibilities may feel easier for one day. But repeated patterns shape identity. Identity shapes destiny. A person who constantly chooses distraction trains the mind to avoid effort automatically. Attention span weakens, patience decreases. Emotional control becomes unstable. The person begins struggling with consistency because their brain has adapted to constant stimulation and instant gratification. This creates weakness gradually. Weakness rarely arrives suddenly. It develops through tolerated habits repeated over time. That is why raising standards requires awareness of small daily decisions. Small decisions create major consequences eventually. Choosing sleep instead of endless late-night distractions strengthens energy. Choosing focused work instead of mindless entertainment strengthens discipline. Choosing meaningful learning instead of constant consumption strengthens growth. These choices may appear ordinary, but repeated consistently, they transform lives. Many people wait for dramatic opportunities while ignoring the importance of ordinary discipline. Real transformation usually happens through quiet, daily decisions nobody else notices. The strongest individuals often live differently in small moments. They protect their mornings carefully. They manage their time intentionally. They limit unnecessary distractions. They think long-term instead of constantly chasing short-term pleasure. Long-term thinking creates maturity. A mature person understands that present actions are connected directly to future consequences. They stop behaving as if today's choices disappear without impact. They recognize that every habit either strengthens or weakens their future condition. This awareness changes priorities. A person with high standards begins asking different questions. Instead of asking what feels easiest, they ask what supports long-term growth. Instead of asking what creates temporary pleasure, they ask what builds lasting strength. This shift creates powerful internal change. The mind becomes calmer when priorities become clear. Confusion often comes from divided attention. A person trying to chase discipline while constantly feeding distraction experiences inner conflict daily. Clear standards reduce that conflict. When you decide what matters most, you stop wasting energy negotiating with yourself constantly. You begin acting with greater certainty because your values become stronger than temporary impulses. This creates emotional stability. A distracted person often feels mentally scattered because attention is constantly being pulled in different directions. Their mind rarely experiences stillness. They struggle to focus deeply because stimulation has trained the brain to expect constant novelty. Stillness becomes uncomfortable for distracted minds, but stillness is necessary for wisdom. Reflection requires quiet attention. Clear thinking requires mental space. Personal growth requires periods of focused effort without endless interruption. Many people avoid stillness because stillness exposes truth. Silence reveals whether your habits are aligned with your goals. Silence reveals whether distractions are controlling your life. Silence forces honest self-observation. That honesty becomes the beginning of transformation. Raising standards also means becoming more disciplined emotionally. Some distractions are not digital or external. Some distractions come through emotional habits like overthinking, comparison, resentment, or constant worry. These patterns drain enormous energy. A person trapped in comparison loses focus on their own path. A person trapped in resentment wastes mental energy replaying past situations. A person trapped in endless worry struggles to take meaningful action because fear dominates attention. Protecting your future requires protecting your mind from these emotional distractions too. Stoic wisdom teaches that peace grows when attention returns to what can actually be controlled. You cannot control every event. You cannot control every opinion. You cannot control how others behave. But you can control your responses, your habits, your effort, and your focus. That control creates freedom. Freedom does not come from doing whatever feels good in the moment. Many people chasing endless comfort eventually become trapped by weak habits. Real freedom comes from self-mastery. It comes from having the discipline to direct your life intentionally instead of being controlled by impulses. A person with strong standards becomes harder to distract because their priorities remain clear. Clarity creates power. When you know what kind of life you want to build, distractions lose some of their emotional appeal. You begin recognizing how temporary pleasures can quietly sabotage meaningful goals. This awareness creates wiser decisions. There will always be distractions competing for your attention. Modern life is designed to pull focus away from meaningful work. Entire industries profit from keeping people distracted, emotionally reactive, and mentally overstimulated. Protecting your focus has become a form of self-defense. Every day, you must choose whether your attention will serve your future or serve your distractions. Every day, you must decide whether your habits are strengthening your life or weakening it quietly. These choices matter more than most people realize. A single distracted afternoon may seem harmless, but repeated daily distraction eventually becomes years of wasted potential. Small habits repeated consistently create either strength or regret. Regret becomes painful because deep down people usually know when they abandoned their own standards. Do not ignore that inner voice reminding you to grow. Do not silence your potential with endless distraction. Do not convince yourself that time is unlimited. Time moves forward constantly, whether focus exists or not. Your future is already being shaped by your current standards. If your standards remain low, your future eventually reflects those choices. If your standards rise, your behavior slowly changes with them. This process requires patience. Raising standards does not mean becoming perfect overnight. It means becoming less willing to tolerate behaviors that weaken your life. Progress matters more than perfection. One disciplined decision repeated consistently can begin changing your identity. One protected hour of focused effort daily can change your future. One commitment to reducing distractions can restore clarity and peace. The important thing is consistency. Strong futures are not built through occasional bursts of discipline. They are built through repeated intentional choices, made long after motivation fades. Every morning you wake up with another opportunity to strengthen your standards, another opportunity to protect your attention, another opportunity to choose growth over distraction. Use those opportunities wisely, because the quality of your future depends heavily on what you continue allowing into your life today. Chapter 7. Train your mind to act with courage and consistency. Fear has stopped more dreams than failure ever has. Many people never truly discover what they are capable of because they spend years waiting for certainty before taking action. They wait until they feel fully confident. They wait until discomfort disappears. They wait until the risk feels smaller. But life rarely offers complete certainty. Important decisions often arrive carrying doubt, pressure, and emotional resistance. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward while fear still exists. Every person experiences hesitation. Even strong people feel nervous before difficult conversations, uncertain opportunities, and major life changes. The difference is not emotional perfection. The difference is response. Weak thinking allows fear to become a permanent excuse. Strong thinking trains the mind to act despite discomfort. This training matters because the human mind naturally avoids uncertainty. It seeks safety, familiarity, and predictability. While this instinct once protected survival, it now often prevents growth. A person may remain trapped inside unhealthy routines simply because those routines feel familiar. They may avoid speaking honestly because conflict feels uncomfortable. They may delay pursuing meaningful goals because failure feels embarrassing. Comfort zones create invisible prisons. At first, comfort feels harmless. A person tells themselves they will take action later. They avoid difficult tasks temporarily. They stay silent when they should speak. They postpone important decisions repeatedly. Over time, avoidance becomes habit. The mind becomes weaker because it has been trained to escape discomfort instead of facing it directly. This weakens confidence deeply. Confidence is not built through thinking alone. Confidence grows through action. Every time you face discomfort without running away, your mind gathers evidence that you are stronger than fear originally suggested. Action changes identity. Many people misunderstand consistency because they believe consistency means feeling motivated every day. Real consistency has nothing to do with constant emotional excitement. Consistency means continuing to act according to your values even when your emotions become unstable. This ability separates dreamers from builders. Dreamers talk about goals when emotions feel high. Builders continue working quietly even during difficult seasons. They understand that progress often feels repetitive, ordinary, and slow before results become visible. The mind must be trained for this reality because emotional impulses naturally seek immediate rewards. Human beings often want quick success, instant clarity, and rapid transformation, but meaningful growth usually requires patient repetition. Patience becomes easier when courage and consistency work together. Courage helps you begin. Consistency helps you continue. Some people start strongly but disappear the moment challenges appear. Others hesitate for years and never begin at all. A strong life requires both qualities. You need the courage to take the first step and the consistency to continue moving after excitement fades. This process starts internally. Before a person acts differently, they must think differently. The mind must stop interpreting discomfort as danger. Discomfort often signals growth, not destruction. Learning new skills feels uncomfortable. Discipline feels uncomfortable. Honest self-reflection feels uncomfortable. Difficult conversations feel uncomfortable. Avoiding all discomfort creates weakness. A person who constantly seeks the easiest path slowly loses resilience. Small problems begin feeling overwhelming because the mind has not practiced endurance. Minor criticism destroys confidence. Temporary setbacks create emotional collapse. This is why courage must become a daily practice instead of an occasional event. Small acts of courage matter deeply. Waking up early when comfort says stay in bed requires courage. Speaking honestly requires courage. Protecting your focus while others waste time requires courage. Taking responsibility for mistakes requires courage. Continuing after failure requires courage. These moments may appear ordinary, but repeated courageous actions reshape character. Character is built through repeated decisions under pressure. Many people admire strength in others while refusing to practice the habits creating that strength. They want confidence without challenge. They want resilience without adversity. They want discipline without sacrifice. Life does not work that way. Strength develops through resistance. Emotional endurance develops through discomfort. Wisdom develops through experience. The important thing is learning how to respond to discomfort intelligently instead of emotionally. Fear often exaggerates consequences. The mind imagines humiliation, disaster, rejection, and failure before action even begins. Most of these imagined outcomes never happen as intensely as fear predicts. Fear grows larger inside avoidance. The longer a person delays action, the more powerful fear appears mentally. A difficult conversation becomes terrifying after months of overthinking. A new opportunity feels impossible after years of self-doubt. The mind creates emotional mountains around situations that often become manageable once action finally begins. Movement weakens fear. This is why waiting to feel fearless before acting is dangerous. Fear rarely disappears through waiting. It weakens through experience. A person becomes more courageous by practicing courage repeatedly. Consistency strengthens this process because repetition creates familiarity. The first difficult action may feel overwhelming. The 10th time often feels manageable because the mind has adapted through repeated exposure. This principle changes lives. A person afraid of discipline becomes stronger through practicing disciplined behavior daily. A person afraid of speaking confidently improves by repeatedly expressing themselves honestly. A person afraid of failure becomes more resilient by continuing despite mistakes. Growth requires repetition under discomfort. Most people quit too early because they expect emotional ease too quickly. They interpret difficulty as evidence they are incapable instead of evidence they are developing. Development often feels messy in the beginning. A person learning discipline may struggle with distractions repeatedly before improving. A person developing confidence may still feel nervous for a long time. A person building consistency may fail occasionally while creating stronger routines. Temporary imperfection does not mean progress is absent. The important thing is refusing to abandon growth because improvement feels slower than expected. Many individuals destroy momentum by demanding perfection from themselves immediately. The moment they make mistakes, they become discouraged and stop trying. But consistent people understand something valuable. They understand that success is usually built through imperfect repetition, not flawless performance. A person becomes stronger by continuing after setbacks. This mindset creates resilience because failure no longer becomes the end of the journey. Instead, failure becomes information. The person asks what can be learned, adjusted, or improved. This perspective creates emotional stability. Emotionally unstable people often swing between extreme motivation and complete discouragement. One successful moment creates excitement. One difficult moment creates hopelessness. Consistency requires steadiness. Steady people continue acting wisely even when emotions fluctuate. They do not expect every day to feel inspiring. They understand that discipline sometimes means acting without emotional enthusiasm. This maturity creates freedom. Freedom is not doing whatever feels comfortable every moment. That type of living often creates chaos, regret, and wasted potential. Real freedom comes from becoming strong enough to direct your own behavior intentionally. A person controlled by fear is not free. A person controlled by impulses is not free. A person controlled by emotional instability is not free. Self-mastery creates freedom. Training your mind requires awareness first. You must observe the situations where fear controls your behavior. Pay attention to the excuses appearing before difficult actions. Notice the moments when your mind immediately searches for comfort instead of growth. Awareness exposes patterns. Many people repeat the same self-defeating habits for years unconsciously. They avoid risk automatically. They procrastinate important tasks automatically. They overthink decisions automatically. Patterns become easier to change once they become visible. Then courage becomes a choice instead of an accident. A courageous person is not someone who never feels uncertain. A courageous person simply refuses to let uncertainty completely stop movement. Movement matters because life rewards action. Opportunities often appear after effort begins, not before. Confidence often appears after repeated practice, not before. Clarity often appears during movement, not during endless hesitation. Overthinking creates paralysis. There are people who spend more energy analyzing possibilities than actually building their lives. They wait for guarantees that never arrive. Meanwhile, time continues moving. Time does not pause while fear makes decisions. This reality should create urgency. Not panic, but urgency to stop wasting years trapped inside hesitation. Every person eventually experiences pain in life. The question is whether the pain comes from temporary discomfort during growth or long-term regret from avoiding growth completely. Regret becomes heavier with age. Many older people do not regret the moments they tried sincerely and failed. They regret the opportunities they never pursued. They regret remaining silent when honesty mattered. They regret allowing fear to shape major life decisions. Do not allow fear to become the author of your future. Train your mind daily. Remind yourself that discomfort is temporary, but wasted potential can last for years. Remind yourself that courage grows through action, not endless preparation. Remind yourself that consistent effort compounds slowly even when results are invisible at first. Invisible progress still matters. A seed growing underground cannot be seen immediately, yet important development is still happening. Human growth often works similarly. Discipline, patience, emotional control, and resilience develop quietly before visible success appears externally. Trust the process of consistent effort. Many people abandon improvement because they focus only on visible results. But meaningful transformation often begins internally first. A stronger mindset develops before stronger outcomes appear. This is why daily mental training matters so deeply. The way you speak to yourself influences behavior significantly. A mind constantly repeating fear-based thoughts becomes weaker emotionally. A mind repeatedly reinforced with disciplined, courageous thinking becomes steadier under pressure. Guard your internal language carefully. Do not constantly predict failure before trying. Do not speak as if your future is already defeated. Speak with honesty, but also with strength. Acknowledge challenges without surrendering to them mentally. Life becomes easier to handle when the mind stops exaggerating every obstacle. Calm focus creates better decisions than emotional panic. Courageous people often appear calmer because they have trained themselves not to collapse mentally during uncertainty. That calmness comes from repeated experience. They have learned that discomfort passes. They have learned that action reduces fear. They have learned that consistency eventually creates momentum. Momentum creates transformation. One courageous decision may seem small today, but repeated courageous decisions create a different identity over time. A person who practices consistency long enough becomes dependable. A person who practices courage long enough becomes resilient. Resilient people still struggle sometimes. They still feel pressure and exhaustion, but they continue moving with discipline instead of surrendering completely to emotion. This creates inner strength that cannot be easily destroyed by temporary circumstances. Every morning you wake up with another opportunity to train your mind. Another opportunity to choose courage over hesitation. Another opportunity to strengthen consistency through disciplined action. Use those moments wisely. Your future is not shaped only by major decisions. It is shaped by repeated daily responses to fear, discomfort, uncertainty, and distraction. Train yourself to respond with courage. Train yourself to continue with consistency. because a disciplined mind acting with courage repeatedly becomes capable of building a life far stronger than fear once allowed you to imagine. Chapter 8. Commit yourself daily to growth, learning, and personal excellence. A person either grows intentionally or slowly becomes comfortable standing still. Life never truly remains frozen. Every day your habits are either sharpening your mind or weakening it. Your routines are either developing wisdom or reinforcing limitation. Your actions are either building a stronger future or quietly repeating the same patterns that already caused frustration in the past. Growth is not automatic. Age alone does not create maturity. Experience alone does not create wisdom. Time alone does not create excellence. Many people spend years repeating the same mistakes because they never pause long enough to examine themselves honestly. They continue reacting emotionally, living without direction, and avoiding personal development while hoping life somehow improves on its own. But hope without effort changes nothing. A meaningful life requires commitment, not temporary excitement, not occasional motivation. Commitment means choosing growth repeatedly, even when the process becomes difficult, uncomfortable, or slow. It means deciding that personal excellence matters enough to deserve daily attention. Most people admire excellence from a distance, while avoiding the habits required to create it. They admire disciplined individuals but continue feeding laziness. They admire intelligent people but stop learning after basic education ends. They admire emotionally strong people but refuse to examine their own mindset honestly. Excellence is not an accident. It is built deliberately. Every strong skill, every disciplined habit, and every wise perspective develops through repeated effort over time. A person becomes stronger by practicing strength consistently. A person becomes wiser by continuing to learn. A person becomes more disciplined by repeatedly choosing responsibility over comfort. This process never truly ends. The moment a person believes they no longer need growth, stagnation begins quietly. Pride closes the mind. Comfort replaces curiosity. Improvement slows down because the individual stops challenging themselves. A growing person remains teachable. They understand that life always has lessons available for those willing to observe carefully. Failure teaches lessons. Success teaches lessons. Relationships teach lessons. Discipline teaches lessons. Even painful experiences can create wisdom when approached with reflection instead of bitterness. Reflection matters deeply because many people experience life without truly learning from it. They repeat the same emotional patterns. They make the same poor decisions. They blame the same circumstances. Years pass, but internal growth remains limited because self-examination never happens honestly. Personal excellence begins with awareness. You must become aware of your habits, thoughts, emotional reactions, and weaknesses without becoming trapped inside shame. Honest observation creates clarity. Clarity creates direction. Direction creates progress. This is why daily commitment matters so much. One day of motivation cannot transform a life. One inspirational moment cannot replace years of weak habits. Lasting growth is built through repeated daily actions that slowly strengthen character over time. Small disciplines become powerful through consistency. Reading a few pages every day develops knowledge gradually. Practicing emotional control daily develops maturity gradually. Improving communication daily strengthens relationships gradually. Exercising consistently strengthens the body gradually. Growth compounds quietly. Many people underestimate slow progress because modern culture encourages impatience constantly. People want immediate results, immediate recognition, and immediate transformation. When change feels slower than expected, they become discouraged and stop trying. Patience separates serious people from distracted people. A serious person understands that excellence takes time. They do not quit because progress appears invisible temporarily. They trust the process of disciplined repetition. This mindset creates stability. A person committed to growth no longer depends entirely on emotional excitement. They continue learning even during difficult seasons. They continue improving habits even when life feels stressful. They continue examining themselves honestly instead of hiding behind excuses. This creates strength from the inside outward. Learning becomes especially important because the world changes constantly. A stagnant mind struggles to adapt. A person who stops learning eventually becomes trapped inside outdated thinking, limited perspectives, and emotional rigidity. An active mind stays alive. Learning is not limited to classrooms, books, or formal education. Learning happens through observation, reflection, conversations, mistakes, challenges, and daily experiences. A wise person pays attention to patterns. They ask questions. They remain curious instead of assuming they already understand everything. Curiosity protects growth. The moment curiosity disappears, arrogance often begins. Arrogance blocks improvement because the person stops listening, learning, and adapting. Strong individuals remain humble enough to improve continuously. Humility does not mean weakness. Humility means understanding that growth is always possible. It means recognizing that no matter how much progress you make, there are still areas requiring discipline, wisdom, and maturity. This perspective creates emotional balance. A person focused on growth stops obsessing over perfection. Instead, they focus on progress. They stop expecting themselves to become flawless overnight. They understand that mistakes are part of development. This understanding prevents unnecessary discouragement. Many people destroy their own momentum as they become emotionally overwhelmed whenever they fail temporarily. They interpret mistakes as proof they are incapable instead of recognizing mistakes as opportunities to learn. Growth requires resilience. A resilient person does not collapse emotionally every time life becomes difficult. They learn, adjust, and continue moving. This does not mean ignoring emotions completely. It means refusing to allow temporary emotions to permanently stop development. Personal excellence also requires discipline because growth without structure rarely lasts. A person may feel inspired occasionally, but without disciplined habits, inspiration fades quickly. Habits create continuity. A person committed to excellence develops routines supporting long-term improvement. They protect time for learning. They manage distractions intentionally. They create environments encourage focus instead of constant chaos. Environment influences behavior deeply. Spend enough time in negative environments and your thinking slowly changes. Spend enough time around disciplined, focused, and growth-oriented individuals, and your standards often rise naturally. This is why protecting your mental environment matters so much. What you consume repeatedly shapes your perspective. Constant negativity weakens motivation. Endless distraction destroys focus. Empty entertainment consumes time that could strengthen your future. Be careful what you normalize. Many people normalize wasting enormous amounts of time while wondering why their life feels stagnant. Time is one of the few resources that never returns once spent. A person serious about growth begins respecting time differently. They stop treating every hour casually. This does not mean becoming obsessed with productivity every second. It means becoming intentional. Intentional people understand that repeated daily choices create long-term outcomes. One focused hour daily can transform knowledge, skills, health, finances, or emotional strength over time. The problem is most people underestimate consistency because results often appear slowly in the beginning. They expect dramatic visible change immediately. But real development usually happens internally first. The mind becomes stronger before external success appears. Discipline becomes deeper before achievements become visible. Emotional maturity develops quietly before others notice changes externally. Invisible growth still matters. A tree develops roots underground before visible height appears above the surface. Human growth often follows the same principle. Patience becomes necessary because not every improvement receives immediate recognition. Do not become dependent on applause. Some people stop improving because nobody notices their effort quickly enough. They want constant validation for every small step. But true growth often requires working quietly without immediate praise. A mature person continues improving because excellence matters internally, not only because recognition might appear externally. This creates independence. Independent thinkers are not controlled entirely by outside opinions. They listen to feedback wisely, but their commitment to growth does not disappear whenever criticism appears. Criticism becomes easier to handle when identity is rooted in learning rather than ego. An ego-driven person fears mistakes because mistakes threaten self-image. A growth-driven person values lessons more than appearances. They become more adaptable because they are not wasting energy pretending to know everything already. Adaptability creates resilience in changing situations. Life rarely follows perfect plans. Unexpected problems appear. Circumstances shift, goals evolve. A flexible learning mindset helps people navigate uncertainty more effectively. People committed to growth often recover faster after setbacks because they view challenges differently. Instead of seeing obstacles as permanent defeat, they ask what can still be learned, improved, or strengthened. This perspective creates emotional endurance. Endurance matters because every meaningful goal eventually demands persistence. Difficult days are unavoidable. There will be moments of exhaustion, frustration, doubt, and disappointment. Without deep commitment, many people quit during these moments. Commitment carries people through emotional instability. A committed person remembers why growth matters even during uncomfortable seasons. They remember that personal excellence is not about becoming superior to others. It is about becoming more disciplined, wise, capable, and intentional than previous versions of themselves. This creates purpose. Purpose strengthens discipline because actions begin connecting to something deeper than temporary feelings. A person without purpose often becomes easily distracted because nothing meaningful guides their attention consistently. Direction creates focus. Focus becomes powerful because modern life constantly competes for attention. Endless distractions pull people away from meaningful improvement every day. Without clear priorities, years can disappear into passive routines. Do not drift through life unconsciously. Wake up each day remembering that growth requires participation. Excellence requires effort. Wisdom requires reflection. Discipline requires practice. Nothing valuable develops accidentally. Your future self is shaped daily by what you repeatedly practice now. The books you read influence your thinking. The habits you repeat influence your character. The conversations you entertain influence your mindset. Everything leaves influence behind. This is why intentional living matters deeply. A person serious about growth becomes more aware of what they allow into their mind, life, and routine. Awareness creates responsibility. Once you recognize behaviors weakening your future, you can no longer honestly pretend ignorance. Growth then becomes a decision, repeated daily through action. Some days commitment will feel easier than others. Some mornings your mind will resist discipline completely. During those moments, remember something important. Feelings change constantly, but values should remain steady. Act according to values, not moods. A person ruled entirely by emotion struggles with consistency because emotions rise and fall unpredictably. A person guided by principles develops greater stability because their actions remain connected to long-term priorities. This stability builds trust internally. When you continue honoring your commitments even during difficult moments, you begin respecting yourself more deeply. Self-respect grows through integrity between words and behavior. Integrity creates peace. There is peace in knowing you are no longer abandoning your growth whenever discomfort appears. There is strength in becoming someone who continues learning, improving, and developing despite temporary setbacks. That strength changes lives gradually. Every morning offers another opportunity to sharpen your thinking, strengthen your discipline, and deepen your understanding. Another opportunity to improve habits. Another opportunity to become wiser, more patient, more focused, and more resilient. Use those opportunities carefully, because the person you become in the future is being shaped quietly by the standards, habits, and learning you commit yourself to today. Chapter 9. Inspire your actions through clear goals and honest self-reflection. Many people move through life with energy, but without direction. They stay busy every day yet still feel unfulfilled because activity alone does not create progress. A person can spend years working hard while quietly drifting further away from the life they actually want. Effort without clarity often leads to exhaustion instead of meaningful growth. Clear goals give energy a destination. Without goals, the mind becomes vulnerable to distraction, confusion, and emotional inconsistency. A person wakes up each morning reacting to circumstances instead of moving intentionally toward something meaningful. They spend time solving urgent problems while ignoring important personal growth. Days begin blending together because there is no clear vision guiding decisions. This creates emptiness slowly. Deep down, most people want to feel that their actions matter. They want to know their effort is building something valuable. They want direction strong enough to pull them forward during difficult moments. Goals provide that direction when they are connected to purpose, values, and honest self-understanding. But goals alone are not enough. A person can write ambitious plans paper while continuing habits that sabotage progress completely. This is where honest self-reflection becomes necessary. Reflection forces a person to confront reality instead of fantasy. It reveals whether actions align with intentions. It exposes excuses, distractions, and emotional patterns that quietly interfere with growth. Honest reflection requires courage because truth is sometimes uncomfortable. Many people avoid self-reflection because they fear what they may discover. It feels easier to stay distracted than to examine weaknesses honestly. But avoiding truth never creates freedom. Avoidance only delays improvement. Growth begins when honesty becomes stronger than denial. A reflective person regularly asks difficult questions. Am I spending time wisely? Are my habits supporting my future or weakening it? Am I acting according to my values or only reacting emotionally? Am I becoming stronger, more disciplined, and more focused, or am I remaining trapped in old patterns? These questions create awareness. Awareness matters because unconscious living creates repeated mistakes. A person who never examines themselves often repeats destructive habits for years without understanding why life feels stagnant. They blame circumstances while ignoring personal choices. They focus on external problems while neglecting internal discipline. Self-reflection restores responsibility. It reminds you that while not every situation is controllable, your response still shapes your future. This mindset creates empowerment because it shifts attention toward what can actually be improved. Goals become powerful when connected to this kind of awareness. Meaningful goals should not exist only to impress other people. Goals built entirely around status, approval, or comparison often create emotional emptiness even after success appears externally. Real fulfillment comes when goals align with personal values, character, and purpose. A wise person asks not only what they want to achieve, but also who they want to become. Character matters more than temporary recognition. A person may achieve money, status, or external success while remaining internally undisciplined, anxious, and disconnected from themselves. External achievement without inner development rarely creates lasting peace. This is why self-reflection must continue even during success. Success can create dangerous illusions if reflection disappears. Pride grows easily when people stop examining themselves honestly. They begin believing improvement is no longer necessary. Comfort replaces discipline. Ego replaces humility. A reflective person stays grounded. They recognize that growth is an ongoing process. They continue learning from mistakes even after progress appears. They remain open to improvement instead of becoming trapped inside arrogance. This attitude creates long-term stability. Clear goals also strengthen focus because they reduce unnecessary confusion. A person without direction becomes easily influenced by trends, distractions, and outside opinions. Their priorities constantly shift because nothing meaningful anchors their decisions. Direction creates discipline. When you know what matters most, it becomes easier to say no to distractions weakening your future. A person serious about building health protects habits differently. A person serious about building wisdom protects their attention differently. A person serious about emotional peace manages relationships differently. Clarity changes behavior. This is why vague goals rarely create transformation. General wishes produce weak action. A person saying they simply want a better life may remain passive because the vision lacks specificity. But a person who clearly defines the habits, mindset, and values they want to develop gains stronger direction. Specific intention strengthens commitment. The mind functions more effectively when purpose becomes clear. Energy becomes organized. Decisions become simpler. Motivation becomes steadier because actions feel connected to something meaningful instead of random effort. Still, goals must remain realistic enough to encourage action rather than perfectionism. Many people become trapped because they create impossible expectations for themselves immediately. They want instant mastery, instant confidence, and instant transformation. When reality moves slower than fantasy, discouragement appears quickly. Patience protects progress. Meaningful growth usually develops gradually through consistent small actions repeated over time. A person does not become disciplined in one dramatic moment. They become disciplined through repeated daily choices. A person does not become emotionally strong overnight. Emotional resilience develops through experience, reflection, and intentional practice. This understanding creates emotional balance. Balanced people do not panic when progress feels slow. They focus on process instead of demanding immediate perfection. They recognize that small improvements matter because repeated improvements eventually create major transformation. Transformation often appears invisible before it becomes visible. Many people quit during the invisible stage. They stop too early because results have not appeared externally yet. But growth is often happening internally first. Mindset changes before behavior fully changes. Discipline deepens before achievement becomes obvious. Trusting this process requires patience and reflection. Reflection helps you notice progress that external results may not reveal immediately. You begin recognizing improved emotional control, stronger habits, better focus, and increased self-awareness. These internal changes matter deeply because they form the foundation for lasting external success. Without strong internal habits, external achievement often becomes unstable. A person may temporarily succeed through excitement, luck, or external pressure, but without self-awareness, discipline, and reflection, sustainability becomes difficult. Sustainable growth requires alignment between goals and daily behavior. This is why reflection should become part of daily life instead of an occasional emotional reaction during crisis. A reflective person observes themselves regularly. They notice when distractions increase. They notice when emotional reactions become unhealthy. They notice when discipline weakens. Awareness creates opportunities for correction before problems become larger. Many people allow small, unhealthy habits to grow into major life problems because reflection never interrupts the pattern early enough. Minor procrastination becomes chronic avoidance. Temporary distraction becomes addiction to stimulation. Small dishonesty becomes damaged integrity. Reflection protects character. A person who examines themselves honestly becomes harder to deceive. They recognize excuses more quickly. They notice emotional patterns earlier. They become more intentional because awareness reduces unconscious behavior. This creates maturity. Mature people understand that personal growth requires responsibility. They stop blaming every struggle on external conditions alone. They ask how their own habits, choices, and mindset may be contributing to problems. This perspective creates power because it returns focus to personal action. A powerless mindset constantly waits for circumstances to improve first. A responsible mindset begins improving what can already be controlled. Control over daily actions matters enormously. Goals become reality through repeated ordinary behaviors. Large visions are built through small disciplined decisions practiced consistently over time. Waking up earlier, studying regularly, protecting focus, exercising, controlling emotional reactions, managing time wisely, and learning continuously all appear simple individually, but repeated consistently they reshape entire lives. Many people fail not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack consistency between reflection and action. They recognize problems intellectually, but never apply disciplined change practically. Knowledge without action creates frustration. A person knows they should improve habits yet continues repeating destructive patterns. This gap between awareness and action creates internal conflict. The person loses peace because deep down they know they are not honoring their own potential. Action restores alignment. Even small intentional actions create emotional relief because movement replaces stagnation. A person begins trusting themselves more when behavior finally matches values. Self-trust matters because confidence grows through evidence. Every time you follow through on meaningful commitments, your mind gathers proof that you are becoming dependable. Dependability creates inner stability. A stable person is less controlled by emotional extremes because they rely more on principles than temporary feelings. They understand that motivation changes daily, but meaningful goals require consistent effort regardless of emotional fluctuations. This understanding strengthens resilience. Resilient individuals do not abandon goals every time discomfort appears. They expect challenges as part of growth. They remain committed during difficult seasons because their direction remains clear. Clarity protects endurance. A person without purpose often quits quickly because discomfort feels meaningless. A person connected to meaningful goals can endure difficulty more effectively because struggle becomes connected to long-term growth instead of random suffering. Purpose changes perception. The same difficult task feels different depending on meaning. Discipline feels lighter when connected to personal values. Sacrifice feels more manageable when connected to meaningful vision. This is why honest reflection should include examining motivations carefully. Ask yourself why certain goals matter. Ask whether your ambitions are creating wisdom, peace, and growth, or only feeding ego, comparison, and approval seeking. Not every goal deserves pursuit. Some ambitions create external success while destroying internal balance. A person obsessed entirely with status may neglect health, relationships, integrity, and emotional peace. Reflection helps prevent this imbalance by reconnecting goals to deeper values. Values create direction beyond temporary emotions. A life guided only by impulses becomes unstable. A life guided by thoughtful principles becomes stronger over time. Strength grows quietly through daily reflection and intentional action. You do not need to transform your entire life in one dramatic moment. You need consistent honesty. You need clear priorities. You need disciplined action connected to meaningful goals. Small, consistent progress changes identity gradually. Every day provides another opportunity to reflect honestly and adjust direction wisely. Another opportunity to examine habits. Another opportunity to strengthen focus. Another opportunity to move closer toward the person you want to become. Use those opportunities carefully. Do not waste years moving without direction. Do not silence self-awareness with endless distraction. Do not allow fear, comfort, or confusion to control your future. Create goals that strengthen your character, not only your image. Reflect honestly enough to recognize what must change. Then act consistently enough to turn self-awareness into transformation. Because a clear mind guided by purpose and strengthened through honest reflection becomes capable of building a life rooted in discipline, wisdom, and meaningful growth. Chapter 10. Transform your entire life through intentional morning declarations. Every morning your life begins again, in a quiet, invisible way before the world even notices. Before conversations begin, before responsibilities demand attention, before distractions fill your mind. There is a short moment where your thoughts still have direction waiting to be chosen. Most people ignore this moment completely. They wake up and immediately enter reaction mode. They grab their phone. They absorb stress. They replay yesterday's disappointments. They allow outside noise to shape their emotional state before their own mind has spoken with clarity. This is why so many people feel mentally exhausted before the day truly begins. A weak morning creates weak momentum. A distracted beginning often leads to distracted decisions. An anxious mindset early in the day usually spreads emotional tension into everything else. The way you begin your morning influences your focus, patience, discipline, energy, and emotional stability more deeply than most people realize. Morning declarations create intentional direction before life begins pulling your attention in different directions. These declarations are not empty phrases repeated without meaning. They are reminders shaping your mindset through repetition. They help establish emotional order before chaos arrives. They remind you what matters most before distractions begin competing for your focus. A person who speaks intentionally to themselves every morning slowly changes the quality of their thinking. The mind listens carefully to repeated language. Whatever thoughts receive attention consistently begin shaping perception, behavior, and identity. If a person constantly wakes up speaking with doubt, fear, frustration, and hopelessness, their mind eventually accepts those emotions as normal. Their decisions begin reflecting weakness long before external failure appears. But intentional declarations can interrupt this pattern. A person who begins each morning reminding themselves about discipline, focus, patience, gratitude, resilience, and responsibility starts training the brain differently. The mind slowly adapts to stronger emotional patterns through repetition. Repetition creates familiarity. Familiar thinking eventually becomes automatic thinking. This means the words you consistently speak to yourself each morning matter far more than occasional bursts of motivation. Daily internal language quietly influences long-term identity. Many people underestimate how much their life is controlled by repeated mental habits. They focus only on external circumstances while ignoring the internal conversation shaping their emotional responses every day. Internal conversations influence everything. They influence how you respond to pressure. They influence whether you continue after setbacks. They influence whether fear controls decisions. They influence whether discipline survives discomfort. This is why intentional morning declarations are powerful when connected to action and self-awareness. The purpose is not pretending problems do not exist. The purpose is strengthening your mindset before confronting those problems. Life remains unpredictable regardless of positive thinking. Challenges still appear. Disappointments still happen. Stress still exists. But a prepared mind handles difficulty differently than an unprepared mind. Preparation creates stability. A person who wakes up intentionally often responds to obstacles with greater calm because their thoughts are already grounded in principles instead of emotional chaos. They remember their values before pressure tests them. Values matter because emotions constantly change. Some mornings you will feel confident. Other mornings you may feel mentally tired, uncertain, or discouraged. If your behavior depends entirely on emotional conditions, consistency becomes impossible. Morning declarations help anchor your behavior to values instead of moods. This creates emotional maturity. Mature people understand that feelings are temporary, but disciplined actions create long-term consequences. They stop allowing every emotional fluctuation to control important decisions. The mind becomes stronger when it practices intentional focus daily. Focus is becoming increasingly rare in modern life. Endless notifications, entertainment, distractions, and comparison weaken attention constantly. Many people no longer know how to sit quietly with their thoughts without seeking stimulation immediately. This weakens emotional endurance. A restless, distracted mind struggles with patience, discipline, and clarity. It reacts impulsively. It seeks immediate comfort. It avoids stillness because silence often exposes truth. Morning declarations create intentional stillness before the demands of the day begin. That stillness allows reflection. Reflection allows awareness. Awareness creates change. Many people spend years trapped in destructive cycles simply because they never pause long enough to examine their thoughts honestly. They repeat negative patterns automatically. They wake up stressed, think negatively, react emotionally, and end the day exhausted without understanding why peace feels distant. Intentional mornings interrupt automatic living. This interruption matters deeply because transformation begins when unconscious behavior becomes conscious. Once you become aware of your mental habits, you gain the ability to guide them intentionally instead of remaining controlled by them. Morning declarations also strengthen identity. Identity influences behavior more than motivation alone. A person who repeatedly reminds themselves they are disciplined, resilient, patient, and responsible begins acting differently over time. The mind starts aligning actions with repeated internal expectations. This process happens gradually. Most meaningful change develops quietly before visible results appear externally. A stronger mindset forms before stronger habits fully develop. Emotional control improves before external success becomes obvious. Do not underestimate invisible progress. A seed develops underground before growth becomes visible above the surface. Human development often follows the same pattern. Consistent internal conditioning creates long-term external transformation. This is why patience matters. Many people quit positive routines too early because immediate dramatic results do not appear. They expect instant confidence, instant peace, and instant discipline. But deep transformation usually requires repetition over long period time. Consistency creates depth. One intentional morning changes little by itself. Hundreds of intentional mornings slowly reshape a life. A person who spends years waking up disciplined and self-awareness becomes emotionally strengthened from someone who wakes up reacting impulsively every day. Habits create identity over time. Morning declarations become especially important during difficult seasons. Easy days require less emotional preparation because comfort naturally supports confidence temporarily. But stressful seasons reveal the true condition of the mind. During hardship, weak mental habits collapse quickly. A person controlled by fear, negativity, and emotional instability struggles heavily when life becomes uncertain. A person trained through intentional thinking often handles adversity with greater resilience because their mind has practiced discipline before difficulty arrived. This does not mean they avoid pain completely. It means pain does not completely destroy their direction. Direction creates endurance. A person connected to clear principles survives difficult seasons more effectively because they remember who they are trying to become even while circumstances feel uncomfortable. Morning declarations reinforce this memory daily. They remind you that temporary emotions should not control permanent decisions. They remind you that growth still matters during difficult moments. They remind you that discipline remains valuable, even when progress feels slow. These reminders create psychological strength. Psychological strength is not loud, dramatic, or arrogant. Often it appears through quiet consistency. It appears when a person continues honoring values despite prayer. It appears when distractions fail to completely derail focus. It appears when someone chooses growth repeatedly instead of surrendering to excuses. This strength changes lives from the inside outward. External success without internal strength rarely creates lasting fulfillment. A person may achieve money, recognition, or status while remaining emotionally fragile internally. But a person with strong internal discipline carries stability into every area of life. That stability begins with thoughts. Thoughts influence actions. Actions influence habits. Habits influence character. Character influences destiny. This chain explains why intentional declarations matter so deeply. They are not random words. They are mental instructions shaping emotional patterns gradually over time. Choose those instructions carefully. A person constantly repeating hopeless thoughts weakens emotional resilience. A person repeatedly reinforcing disciplined, focused, and responsible thinking strengthens resilience slowly. The mind adapts to repeated focus. This is why negative environments become dangerous over time. Constant exposure to fear, anger, comparison, gossip, and distraction influences thinking deeply. Without intentional mental habits, many people absorb negativity unconsciously until anxiety and frustration become normal emotional states. Morning declarations create protection against this influence. They establish your mindset before external voices begin demanding attention. They help you remember your standards before the world encourages distraction. Standards matter because modern life constantly encourages emotional impulsiveness. Many people are taught to follow feelings without examining whether those feelings are wise, productive, or healthy. Wise people examine emotions before obeying them. Morning declarations help create this pause between emotion and action. They strengthen awareness. They reinforce self-control. They remind you that long-term peace often requires short-term discipline. Discipline protects the future. Every intentional morning becomes an investment into the person you are becoming gradually. Every focused declaration strengthens mental habits, supporting growth, resilience, patience, and emotional maturity. This investment compounds over time. The strongest transformations often appear ordinary in the beginning. Waking up early, sitting quietly, speaking intentional words, reflecting honestly, protecting focus. These actions seem simple individually, but repeated consistently, they reshape identity completely. Identity determines direction. A distracted person creates distracted outcomes. A disciplined person creates disciplined outcomes. A focused person builds focused results. Internal condition eventually influences external reality. This is why protecting your mind should become a daily priority rather than an occasional reaction during crisis. Do not wait for life to become painful before strengthening your mindset. Train your thinking before pressure arrives. Build emotional endurance before chaos begins. Create internal structure before circumstances test your stability. Preparation creates confidence. Confidence grows when you know your mind has been trained intentionally, not perfectly, not without struggle, but consistently enough to remain steady during difficult moments. This steadiness becomes powerful because most people live emotionally reactive lives. Their mindset changes completely based on temporary events. One disappointment destroys motivation. One criticism ruins confidence. One difficult season creates hopelessness. Intentional declarations help reduce this instability by strengthening internal consistency. You begin responding according to values more often instead of reacting impulsively to every emotion. This creates peace. Peace is not the absence of difficulty. Peace often comes from knowing your mind is no longer completely controlled by fear, distraction, insecurity, or emotional chaos. A disciplined mind experiences greater clarity because internal noise becomes quieter over time. Priorities become stronger, focus becomes sharper, decisions become more intentional. Intentional living creates meaningful transformation. Transformation does not happen because you wish for a different future occasionally. Transformation happens because daily actions, thoughts, and habits begin aligning consistently with the person you want to become. Morning declarations help create this alignment. They remind you daily that your future is shaped by repeated internal patterns. They encourage responsibility instead of blame. They strengthen focus instead of distraction. They build resilience instead of emotional fragility. Most importantly, they remind you that every morning is another opportunity to begin again intentionally. Yesterday may have contained mistakes, distractions, or weakness. But every new morning still offers another chance to think differently, act differently, and grow differently. Use that opportunity wisely. Do not hand your mindset to random distractions before guiding it yourself. Do not allow fear to become louder than purpose. Do not allow temporary emotions to decide the direction of your life repeatedly. Wake up with intention. Speak with clarity. Remind yourself who you are becoming. Then carry those declarations into disciplined throughout the day. Because a person who trains their mind intentionally every morning slow transforms far more than thoughts alone. They transform their habits, decisions, character, relationships, direction, and ultimately the quality of their entire life.